All right, so who else grabbed their coffee or tea when they heard what we were diving into today?
Yeah, it's hard to resist, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But seriously, today we're tackling caffeine.
Ooh, exciting.
It is. And we're going deeper than just, caffeine wakes you up. We're going all the way down to the cells to see how it really works.
I love it when we get into the nitty-gritty like that.
Me too. We're dissecting this super interesting YouTube video by the Institute of Human Anatomy.
Oh, I've seen their stuff. They're great.
They really are. So get ready to rethink your morning cup of joe.
You know what always blows my mind? It's not just a drink, right? Like, caffeine is one of the most common psychoactive substances in the world. 90% of adults use it regularly.
Whoa, hold on, psychoactive. That sounds kind of serious for something you just pick up at the corner store.
I know, right? But psychoactive really just means it affects your brain directly. It changes your mood, thoughts, how you act.
So like nicotine or alcohol would fall under that category too.
Exactly. And when you feel more alert after your coffee, that's caffeine's psychoactive side showing up.
Interesting. So it's not just the taste or the habit, it's actually messing with our brain chemistry.
Pretty much. And we usually call caffeine a stimulant, right? Specifically, it acts on the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord.
Right. Okay. So break it down for us. How's this all happening at the cellular level? Like what's going on with our neurons and all that?
Okay, so imagine your brain's like a busy city with messages constantly flying between buildings.
Okay, I can picture that.
Those buildings are your neurons, and the messengers are these chemicals called adenosine.
Adenosine, got it.
Adenosine is like a key that fits into specific receptors, the locks on your neurons.
Okay, so when adenosine binds to a receptor, what happens?
It basically tells the neuron to slow down, to chill out.
So the more adenosine we have, the more tired we get. Is that why we hit that afternoon slump?
Bingo! It's
Yeah.
like your battery draining throughout the day as you use energy.
And adenosine is like the byproduct.
Yeah, the more energy you burn, the more adenosine builds up, and the more those tired signals get sent to your brain.
Okay, that makes sense. But then how does caffeine come into play? Like where does it fit into this whole adenosine party?
Well, caffeine's the ultimate party crasher. It pretends to be adenosine. Like, it's a fake key that fits into the adenosine receptors but doesn't actually activate them.
So it's blocking the real adenosine from getting in.
Exactly. It's like putting a piece of tape over the lock so the real key can't turn it.
Genius.
Yeah.
So you're feeling that slump, your energy's fading, and then you reach for your coffee.
Right. And the caffeine rushes into your bloodstream, makes its way to your brain, and starts blocking all those adenosine receptors.
So those tired messages aren't getting through anymore, and you're suddenly ready to go again.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Caffeine isn't actually giving you energy. It's just blocking the feeling of tiredness so you can access your existing energy reserves.
Whoa, that's pretty trippy when you think about it. But wait, it can't be that simple, right? What about those effective doses and safe amounts we hear about? Is there like a magic number for everyone?
I wish. But it's way more complicated than that. Effective doses can be anywhere from like 30 milligrams to over 300 milligrams.
Wow, that's a huge range.
It is. It depends on things like genetics, body weight, and how much caffeine you usually consume.
So if you don't drink coffee often, you'd be more sensitive to even a small amount.
Definitely. And it's important to remember the safe limit, which is around 400 milligrams a day for most adults.
Okay, so caffeine newbies, start slow. Speaking of downsides, what about long-term effects? Anything we should be worried about?
Well, one thing to consider is tolerance.
Like our bodies get used to it?
Exactly. When you consume caffeine regularly, your body kind of adapts.
How so?
It starts making more adenosine receptors, those little locks we talked about.
Oh, so it's like our brains are trying to outsmart the caffeine.
Yeah, kinda. It's this constant back and forth. The more caffeine you drink, the more your body tries to compensate.
So you need more and more to feel the same effect.
Exactly. And that can be a bit of a slippery slope.
I can imagine. Are there any other downsides we should be aware of?
Yeah, caffeine can affect other parts of your body too. Like, it can make your blood pressure and heart rate go up.
Oh, right. I've heard that before.
And it's also a diuretic.
What does that mean?
It makes you pee more.
Ah, okay. So maybe not the best drink to have before a long car ride.
Probably not. And some people, especially if they're not used to caffeine or if they have a lot, they might get jittery or anxious.
Yeah, I definitely feel that sometimes.
And it can also upset your stomach. But here's a weird thing. As you build up tolerance, those side effects actually become less noticeable.
Wait, seriously. So the more caffeine you drink, the less you feel those negative effects.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox.
That almost sounds like a good thing.
It can be tricky, though, because even though the side effects might lessen, You become more dependent on the caffeine just to feel normal.
Right, so if you suddenly stop or cut back, you'd probably feel pretty rough.
Yeah, you might experience withdrawal symptoms.
And like what kind of symptoms are we talking about? Headaches, fatigue, that kind of thing?
Exactly. And you might have trouble concentrating, get irritable, even have some muscle aches.
Wow, that doesn't sound fun.
It's your body basically saying, hey, where's my caffeine?
It's like it's holding our brains hostage with the promise of energy.
And then when you try to break free, it hits you with those withdrawal symptoms.
That's a pretty intense analogy, but I get it.
Yeah.
So the big question is caffeine addictive? Like, is our daily coffee a real addiction?
Well, caffeine can definitely be habit-forming, but most experts wouldn't say it's clinically addictive, not in the same way as like nicotine or alcohol.
Okay, that's good to know. What about people who want to cut back or quit? What's the best way to do it?
Gradual tapering is usually the way to go.
Like slowly reducing your intake over time.
Yeah, that gives your body a chance to adjust without those intense withdrawal symptoms.
So it's better to wean yourself off rather than going cold turkey.
Exactly. And it's usually way easier than people think. You know, we've been talking about downsides, but I think it's important to mention that there are also some potential benefits to caffeine.
Right, like those studies linking caffeine to a lower risk of things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
Exactly. It's still an area of research, but caffeine seems to have some anti-inflammatory properties. And some scientists think it might protect brain cells.
Wow, so our morning coffee could be doing a lot more than just waking us up.
Potentially. It might actually be helping our brains in the long run.
That's pretty amazing. And what about caffeine being used to treat headaches?
Yeah, that's a common one. It's often combined with other medications, but caffeine itself can help relieve headache pain.
So it's a pick-me-up, a potential brain protector, and a pain reliever. Caffeine is starting to sound like a superhero.
Haha, it's definitely versatile. But like any superhero, it's important to respect its power and use it responsibly.
Right, it's all about balance. And speaking of caffeine's powers, we can't forget its role in athletics. We touched on that earlier, but can you tell us more about how it gives athletes that edge?
One of the main things it does is affect your perception of effort. It makes intense exercise feel less tough.
Like you said before, it's blocking those tired signals.
Exactly. So athletes can push themselves harder and train longer.
So it's like tricking their brains into thinking they're not working as hard.
Yeah, in a way. And there's also evidence that caffeine can actually improve muscle power and endurance.
So that translates to like faster sprints, more strength, better stamina.
Yeah, all of that. It's like a secret weapon for athletes in all kinds of sports.
Makes sense. But I imagine there's a sweet spot, right? Like too much caffeine could backfire.
Definitely. Too little might not give you any benefit, but too much can cause anxiety, jitters, or even stomach problems, which would obviously hurt your performance.
So it's all about finding that Goldilocks zone for caffeine intake.
Exactly. And timing matters too. Drinking coffee right before a competition might not be the best idea. Athletes need to experiment and figure out what works best for them and their sport.
Right, it's like tailoring a caffeine game plan.
And just to be clear, caffeine is just one piece of the puzzle. It's not a replacement for good training, nutrition, and recovery.
Absolutely. Those are the foundations. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive. How caffeine works, its effects on the brain and body, the good, the bad, and even its role in sports. It's pretty wild how much one little substance can do.
It really is. It just shows how complex our bodies and brains are.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if caffeine can do all that. Could it actually help us push our limits further than we thought possible? Like, is there some untapped potential within us that caffeine can unlock? It's a really cool thought, right? Like, if caffeine can make a killer workout feel easier or help us focus on a tough project, what else could it do?
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
What if it could help us break through creative blocks, solve those super complex problems, or even, like, push the boundaries of human endurance?
I mean, those are some pretty amazing possibilities, but we got to remember caffeine isn't some magic potion.
Right. Of course not. It's a tool, like you've been saying, and we got to use it wisely.
Exactly. It can be powerful, but we have to respect its power and know its limits, too.
That's a great point. And it just shows how important it is to keep researching all the different ways caffeine affects us, you know?
Absolutely. The more we learn about how it interacts with our brains and bodies, the better we can decide how to use it.
Well said. So we've gone from the tiny cells all the way to the big picture stuff like health and performance. It's been quite the journey.
Haha, yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
But at the end of the day, It's up to each of us to figure out how caffeine fits into our lives.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah.
a personal choice. There's no right or wrong answer for everyone.
The most important thing is to be informed, try different things, and find what works best for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up our caffeine deep dive today, here's something to think about. Don't be afraid to explore your own relationship with caffeine.
Yeah, pay attention to how it makes you feel, both mentally and physically.
Experiment a bit, Try different amounts, different times a day.
You might even discover some hidden potential along the way.
Who knows what you'll find? Thanks for joining us on this fascinating adventure into the world of caffeine. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.